What's going on, Leaguers? Welcome to the Spectacular Spoiler League. I'm the Pandan Superman, the mayor of Hype City, HazyRome, and as always, I'm joined by the God of Night, the Prime Minister of Post-Production, DeepBoyce. And today, we are hyper than hype because we're in the Hall of Spoilers to talk a little bit about Spider-Man Homecoming, baby.
Thwip.
Spider-Man Homecoming.
Thwip,
man. We seen it. We spoiling it. And before you get mad about what we say, we are spoiling the heck out of this movie, man. Mm-hmm. There is nothing that is going to go unspoiled that we're going to talk about in this conversation. So brace yourself. If you have not seen the movie, go see the movie. Come by the Spectacular Spoiler League. Hit subscribe. Like this video. Listen to the video. And that being said, DeepBoyce, let's get right into it. What did you... I'm going to ask you some questions, and I'm going to lay these out right now. Okay, because we're going to address these questions by the end of this video. You good, man? You falling down a cliff? You all right, man?
Yeah, man. Nah, just is residual hype leaving out through my wrists after watching this. You know what I'm saying?
I'm going to pose two questions, man. Mm-hmm. I'm going to put it out there, man.
Well, I think I know which one. Well, one of them's going to be, and it's like the toughest question of all time, but go ahead.
All right. One question. Is this the best Spider-Man movie of all time? Where does it rank in terms of the Spider-Man films for you? Where does it rank in terms of the Marvel films for you? Those are the two questions, and those questions alone should set the tone for this review video. Spider-Man Homecoming is outstanding, y'all.
Yeah,
it is outstanding.
Woo.
It was a ride.
It's definitely a movie that's worth watching at least twice because there's so much that they threw in there, and they weren't lying when they said that they're trying to make this special. They're trying to finally do Spider-Man right. I mean, they've said this a couple times before, as you know, we were hearing about the movie, and the movie's coming in. Definitely. And man, they delivered on that and a lot of other things. But I guess to answer your question, I mean. See, that's a tough one. See, I need to.
You don't have to answer it now, man. Let's talk this out, man. No rush. Yeah, you can answer it by the end. We can bring it back full circle.
I'm gonna just set the context in terms of Spider-Man 2, right?
Okay.
Because that's pretty much the one that Spider-Man Homecoming would be competing with.
Right. That's the gold standard.
That's the gold standard. That's what Spider-Man 2 is one of my favorite superhero movies of all time, and it's a superhero movie that. You know, the young BSG, he was maybe like 2 or 3, and we had the DVD.
Who's BSG, man? People don't know who BSG is, man.
BSG, the backseat gamer, that's my younger brother. So when he was like 2 or 3, we had a DVD, and he would literally watch it every single day for an entire summer. Like, I saw that movie. If there's any movie that I've seen more than any other movie ever, it's Spider-Man 2, and I still like it a lot. See, it's tough to answer this because there's so much in this movie to digest, and we just kind of like got out of the movie theater and raced home to kind of talk about it. I mean, and it's difficult to even. I mean, I don't even know where to start. I guess the first thing that pops up to mind is this movie breaks the Marvel curse or the bad habit that Marvel movies have with their supervillains.
Yes, definitely, absolutely. Shout outs to Michael Keaton. That I would hug that man if I saw him out on the street today. I would hug that man, because the way he played Adrian Toomes, Vulture, it was phenomenal, man. I mean, first of all, he made you can adequately see they gave you an origin, right? Which, you know, Marvel doesn't always do, but right from the get-go, they tell you why, you know, he's doing what he's doing. So essentially, he runs a company that was in charge of the cleanup post the Avengers battle, the Battle of New York, as they call it, the Avengers battle with the Chitauri, and his company gets pushed out of the way in favor of a company that you listeners may know from Marvel Comics called Damage Control. So Damage Control in the comics, they basically clean up after superheroes. So Damage Control is established. They push out Adrian Toomes and his company, and Adrian Toomes is tight because he's like, yo, this is how my family makes money. So. Instead of just walking away from the situation, him and his guys, they steal the Chitauri equipment that they're cleaning up, and they essentially start creating weapons. They weaponize it, and they start selling it on the black market. And they start a lucrative business doing that.
Yeah, and that in and of itself is something that we've seen kind of pop up in not only the movies, but even I think Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Yes. That to me is something that still hasn't even been fully explored in the Marvel universe at large, and Luke Cage in particular.
Yes, with the use of Chitauri Chitauri technology,
Yeah.
and the problems it caused.
Like, this idea of there, like I guess a black market arising from this technology out in space, and
Definitely.
it's just a really cool way to set up, I guess, origin stories for corporations and a lot of villains. I mean, particularly that's how the villains get set up in this movie, because Adrian Toomes and his company and a lot of people that work for him are, I guess, like a precursor to the Sinister Six.
Yeah, because I mean, you got Adrian Toomes' Vulture, right? You've got two Shockers actually in this movie, because one of them literally bites the dust. He becomes the dust. See, when we're talking dust to dust, ashes to ashes, we're talking about that first Shocker.
I like to call him bootleg Tom Hardy.
Oh, dang. Why you calling him that, man? Heston, man.
For like a split second, I was like, wait a second. That's Tom Hardy?
Why did you think that was Tom Hardy, man? He looked nothing like Tom
It was something about him, because I saw him in this other movie. And a couple other movies, actually. We had like the whole full beard and everything.
I'll leave you alone with that one, bro. My man is just painting broad strokes right now. He look like Tom Hardy. He looks nothing like Tom Hardy, man. I mean, we gotta get the actor's name. I'll look that up in a second. But I mean, Adrian Toomes, you got the Shocker.
Yeah, Bokeem Woodbine, who was the second Shocker.
Yes, there we go. You had the Tinkerer. So the Tinkerer was the one. He seems like he was the brains in terms of the person who was weaponizing the technology. The Tinkerer is a villain. I'm not sure if they called him the Tinkerer at all in the movie, but that's who he is.
Yeah.
And then they also showed Mac Gargan, who, if you're familiar with the comics, he plays a Scorpion. So he was actually working. He wasn't working with Toomes' group, but it appears that he was going to do some business with Toomes' group. So, I mean, but Adrian Toomes, he brought sympathy. Like, you understood his plight. He was like, hey, you guys stole from me, and this is all because of Tony Stark. Tony Stark, they don't really explain what his role with damage control is, but it seems that he is the one in charge, based on what the movie seems to allude to. I mean, the scene where the person from Damage Control, the representative from Damage Control, is like, oh, if you have a problem with this, Mr. Toomes, speak to our boss. Then he's like, and who's your boss? And then it cuts away to a picture of Tony Stark, which obviously means Damage Control is probably being run up by Tony Stark.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he brought the sympathy. He brought the menace. Like, Michael Keaton, he's not...
He's very charismatic.
He's... Like, you laughed when he did, reckless stuff. You felt for his plight when, when he was fighting Parker and kind of explaining why, he was doing what he was doing. And then there's the extra twist that they added for the character. Once again, it's a spectacular spoiler, so make sure you watch the damn movie before you come here. You find out that he's actually the father of Liz Allen.
Yeah.
And he's doing all this for essentially the person that Peter has a huge crush on. That's his love interest in this movie.
I mean, it's mutual. They seem to both like each other.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So, I mean, I think... some of the one thing that I think that kind of really sold me on Michael Keaton as Adrian Toomes was when he went to pick up his daughter, when Peter Parker came to pick up his daughter for the homecoming dance, because Liz Allen was his date, and he's putting together the pieces of what Peter Parker's telling him and how he's been in locations where Spider-Man has appeared, and he realizes that Peter Parker is Spider-Man. He's like, Liz, he's like, go ahead and run into the dance. Let me have the dad talk with your date here. And he just lays it down like, yo, I'll kill you, bro. He's like, yo, I'll kill you. Stay out of my way. You got one chance.
Yeah, I mean, they sort of did like a double... It was like, I guess, a double play on that. It's like a traditional scene in a lot of teen movies, right? Where you go and you see the parents or the dad, and he's like, listen, have fun, but don't have too much fun. If you're not here by this time, I'm going to kill you. They do that. And then shortly thereafter, when he realizes he's Spider-Man, he's like, listen, I'm going to give you a chance because my daughter likes you, but you better stop this or I'm going to kill you.
Which is a play on the whole 80s theme that this movie had. You even saw that reference to Ferris Bueller when he's running through, everybody's yard trying to get back to his house.
Yeah.
You see Peter Parker doing the same thing. That was such an 80s reference. It was just like, yo, I'm going to give you the dad talk, but I'm going to flip it on his head and essentially give you the nightmare of talks, which is not only am I a supervillain, but I'm going to kill you. This has nothing to do with my daughter. I'm just going to kill you if you get in my way.
And
awesome.
I really loved how, like, this movie did a lot of things slyly. Like, again, the villain he was able to fit into a traditional role of a villain, but he's a very nuanced character. Like, he's a fully fleshed out character. He's not just there, just like, I'm gonna take over the world. I'm just gonna kill everybody. Like, he just
needs to do it for his family.
Yeah, like I'd say like a good 90% of his motivations make sense. Like, you can totally understand where this guy is coming from.
Right.
It's just he's, at the end of the day, he's a criminal, and in, you know, sort of to juxtapose him and Spider-Man, like, what Vulture's out there doing is putting people in danger. Like, there are some of these weapons that are out there because of him trying to steal them. They're like small little nuclear bombs, right?
Yeah, they're definitely legitimately dangerous.
Meanwhile, Spider-Man is Spider-Man. He's doing things for good intentions, but he's messing up. He's messing up left and right, and that kind of brings in the character of Tony Stark, who's in this movie as a mentor. Newsflash, real quick. Some of you haters out there.
Nah, tell him. Lay it to him, man.
Some of you haters out there making fun of this movie, talking about, I like how Spider-Man's not getting his own movie. This is more of a Tony Stark movie. Now, them clowning on the poster, I get it. That was funny.
Yeah, the poster was trash, man. The poster was not good. That wasn't a good poster.
But for starters, he's really not in that movie as much as you think he is. And when he's in this movie, it's used to great effect. Like, it makes total sense whenever he pops up.
Sure.
And it only really serves to move the story forward. And
if anything, Happy Hogan serves as more of a surrogate Tony Stark, because he's in the movie a lot.
Which I thought was dope, because again, it's Marvel kind of taking small little things, showing attention to detail,
absolutely,
and making lemonade out of it, I guess. But I'll also say real quick, this is kind of what we wanted. I don't know why people are kind of complaining. I mean, they're trying to give these movies a comic book vibe, where you watch this one movie and Captain America's in it. You watch this other movie and Black Panther's in it. You watch this other movie and 3 superheroes are in the, whatever movie it is you're watching, just like in the comics. You're reading a Spider-Man comic, Human Torch pops up, Daredevil pops up, Doctor Strange pops up, etc., etc. And that's really what they did. And Tony Stark in no way, shape, or form took away the shine from Peter Parker or anything else in this movie that happened.
That being said, it wasn't like he was relegated to, just kind of like cameo status, because I mean, Captain America definitely had some hilarious cameos where he was basically Captain America doing PSAs. Yeah. But I mean, Tony Stark also gets a sort of an arc here too, where he keeps making analogies to when talking to Peter. He keeps making analogies about how his father wouldn't have said that, or I'm trying to do. My father was never very positive. He never really gave positive advice or positive feedback. So I'm trying to do that. Like, he kept making references to his father and his upbringing and him trying to be a little bit different. And it kind of gave the feel of Peter Parker being like his surrogate son in a way. And how, Peter was, Peter and him kind of had a little argument because, Tom Holland's Peter Parker was very, very much into being Spider-Man and not so much about living his life right now. Yeah. And, Peter Parker basically says, hey, like, Tony, I'm just trying to be like you. Yeah. And Tony's like, yo, I want you to be better than me.
True.
And I felt like that was a huge moment for Tony Stark's character, because, you forget with Peter Parker doing all this collateral damage by not being a perfect Spider-Man, because he's not perfect by any means in this movie. Mm-hmm. You very much see a Spider-Man at the beginning of his career. Mm-hmm. He's causing all this, collateral damage, like you said, and people could die. And Tony Stark knows what it feels like to have somebody's life be on you. Especially with Civil War. Right, Sokovia. And in Civil War, you saw him dealing with that, where he felt guilty. Mm. And the way he's, kind of working that relationship out with Tom Holland's Peter Parker was just amazing, man. I mean, it was... And you see Tom Holland learning, and you see Peter Parker learning from Stark. You know what I'm saying? Learning how to be Spider-Man, which, the one of the big lines that you hear is, you shouldn't... if you're nothing without the suit, you shouldn't have the suit. Yeah. Which is, Tony Stark taking away the new Spider-Man suit he gave him. Mm-hmm. And we see Peter Parker earn that suit, man. Yeah. That was dope. That was dope, man.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. I guess Spider-Man himself, we kind of knew coming into this that Tom Holland, we really liked the vibe and the performance that he gave us during Civil War.
Sure.
And he, in my opinion, he delivers. He held the movie on his shoulders. And it was entertaining from beginning to end watching him, be Peter Parker and be Spider-Man and
sure.
Go through, I guess, these growing pains. And
sure.
I didn't really think of that as I was watching it, but obviously it is very obvious that they're trying to not only give homage to other things in Spider-Man's history and really kind of bring up the things that make Spider-Man special, but they really shaped this into an 80s, I guess you'd say teen movie, like Ferris Bueller or Breakfast Club. Like sure. I got like really strong vibes, and just in the dialogue and the way all the kids would talk to one another, what would actually happen, the progression of the plot and how they would. It was really more about Peter Parker's teen life than it was about, I guess, saving the day.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, which I think was. It was refreshing. It was refreshing because it kind of breaks the mold and really breaks the formula.
Absolutely.
Of a lot of these Marvel movies, which again is a criticism of the MCU. I guess maybe they're kind of formulaic, but they've been saying that they're going to try and change things up here on out. And I could really see that with Spider-Man: Homecoming, which again, they do try to keep it within the confines of superhero, bad guy, superhero fights the bad guy, saves the day, etc., etc. But again, like we said. The villains were, I think, handled masterfully, and they didn't die. We're probably going to see them again.
Oh, that was the best part. Adrian Toomes is not dead. That was the best thing, because I was like, you introduced one of the... Like, I rank him up there with, like, Loki, Kingpin, like... Vulture is up there on that level.
Totally.
And when you think of the name Vulture and you think of Spider-Man, you don't think like, you don't think like that's... You think Green Goblin when you think of Spider-Man villains. You think, I don't know, you think Doc Ock. Mm-hmm. But, he really was outstanding as Vulture. And he's not dead, bro. Yeah. He's alive. And even better, because he reveals his secret. Mm-hmm. Or rather, he learns Peter Parker's secret, but you learn by the end of it when Mac Gargan comes up to him and says, "Yo, word has it, Spider-Man's identity," mm-hmm. and he's like, "Nah," he's like, "I don't. Believe me, if I knew it, he'd be dead already." And he kind of walks away with a smile, meaning that one, he's gonna use that to his advantage, mm-hmm. and two, he's not just spreading his secret to all the villains in Spider-Man's potential rogues gallery, which is just. I was just like, damn. When he found the secret, I was like, damn. Is that the death mark for him? I was like, does that mean he's going to die? And he didn't die. And, Marvel has had a habit of killing their villains. Yeah. But, we still got Shocker. We still got Vulture. We've still got Scorpion. Mm-hmm. He never suited up. Scorpion, Mac Gargan never suited up, but the potential is there.
Yeah.
Another thing I just wanted to bring up, man, about, Tom Holland as Peter Parker.
Mm-hmm.
He also fell for his plight. You got that this guy just experienced this amazing experience, being in that Civil War conflict. By the way, the intro of that movie showing Civil War, like a summer of Civil War from Peter Parker's video diary was absolutely fantastic. It was hilarious. And also it was like how we felt watching Civil War. Yeah. Which, I'm not, we're obviously, good a bit removed from our teenage years, but mm-hmm. I think that was something that was really remarkable about Spider-Man Homecoming is that I could relate to his play. I could relate to having this fantastic summer experience. That's what happened to me, actually. Going to summer camp. I didn't become Spider-Man, but I had this amazing experience, and I just came back, and it was so mundane. Yeah. And I could relate. He's calling Happy Hogan every 2 seconds. Trying to, see if when his next Avengers mission is. Yeah. One thing that was cool about that, too, is that, you thought Happy Hogan wasn't listening to him, as he was, kind of checking in and mm-hmm. giving him updates about the criminals he took out and whatnot. But you find out not only was Happy listening, but Tony was listening to everything that was going on. Yeah. So Tony kind of was, like, staying in the loop with with Peter Parker, and I think he's going to be very integral to his growth in the MCU as a hero in his own right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And again, I mean, all this interconnectivity is it's exciting. It's exciting to kind of see happen. And not only that, but seeing it done well. I mean, thanks Sony for working together with Marvel here, and
thanks Sony for making Amazing Spider-Man 2 trash, so you can have the goddamn wherewithal to make this decision, man.
Fox, please.
Listen, we're not talking to Fox, man. They still in their ignorance right now. We can't even talk to Foxes out here. They're like, yo, let me make Mystique the main character of the X-Men universe. Fox is out here. They out here dropping the ball, man. We can't even don't tank this video with Fox right now.
Yeah,
man.
Forget Fox. Forget
Fox, man.
But I mean, I guess because I'm really working through that original question that you asked me. I mean, we got out of the theater. You asked me the same question: is this the best Spider-Man movie? And
of all time.
And again, you know, like I said, Spider-Man 2, I watched it so many goddamn times, but I feel that Spider-Man Homecoming could be that movie. It could be a movie that you can keep. Like, I'm ready to watch this again if I ever get the chance to watch it again.
Definitely.
Like, there were so many things, that little Easter eggs, little bits of just like just nerd love that they just sprinkled everywhere throughout this movie. And a ton that we probably missed. I mean, one of the ones that kind of stuck out to me was a scene, I guess, leading into the final fight where Spider-Man, or Peter Parker, was under all this rubble, and then he was struggling to push it up, and then he finally overcame it. He pushed all the rubble off of him, which was I guess reminiscent of an iconic Spider-Man panel where something similar happens to him, and like all the debris is on him, and there's water spilling on him, and he just kind of slowly pushes it up.
I believe it was from Amazing Spider-Man issue number 33.
There we go.
If I'm not mistaken.
Bong.
But there was some other Easter eggs too. There was an Easter egg for Thor's belt.
Yes.
So Thor kind of has a belt in the comics. Honestly, I have no idea how to pronounce the name of this. Because this is friggin' friggin' mythology, Norse mythology. I'm just gonna spell it, okay?
Yeah.
MEGINGJORO. And for the record, Happy Hogan couldn't pronounce it either. He was like, Thor's belt.
Making Joros?
That sounds like some good food right there. Some Megan Joros.
Megan Jord.
It's like Megan Joro, basically. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm not even going to try. But it's basically in the comics is a strength enhancing belt. They also tease Captain America getting a new shield. He has a new shield in the comics right now. I don't know if it's going to be different. Yeah. And they also spoke about Iron Man's Hulkbuster armor, because they set up this whole new Avengers facility, and we finally got a glimpse of it. It looks fantastic. But I mean, the future, man.
Yeah, and just also a lot of characters they threw out there, like just with such, I guess, bravado, where they're just like, yeah, we're giving you Betty Brant. Yeah, you see that blonde? I don't know. Maybe that's Gwen. You think about it. Who's that other character? Is it Mary Jane? Is it Michelle? Is it I don't know. But
so, as you bring that up, Zendaya is not a liar, okay? Because people were asking her if she plays Mary Jane. She does not play Mary Jane in the movie. I feel like that's probably going to be the biggest point of contention for people with this movie, the issue of Mary Jane. Yeah. She does not play Mary Jane. She plays Michelle. I'm not sure what her last name is, but essentially it looks like she's playing Michelle Gonzalez from the comics, who is like a sometimes love interest for Peter Parker. But they've mixed that. They've kind of given it a spin by mixing her character with the person who's eventually going to become MJ. Yeah. So she isn't playing Mary Jane, but she's going by MJ in the movie universe. So you know that she's going to be this Spider-Man universe's MJ, and I'm completely cool with that. I'm completely fine with that.
Yeah. I mean, like, a lot of the changes.
I don't care what MJ's real name is.
Yeah,
as long as she's MJ, I'm cool.
A lot of the changes, a lot of the things that they kind of remixed, I'm totally fine with. Fine with, because again, this is sort of their rendition and their take on Spider-Man. Finally, just after we've been clamoring for so long to get this to happen, and they're really making it happen. And I remember, I saw some I guess some people pointed out that apparently he doesn't have spider sense in this movie, which it seems like he doesn't. But honestly, I wasn't even really that mad. I mean, he's 15, going on 16. He's probably going through puberty, and maybe he just develops it at some point because he's going through puberty and his powers start changing.
I have a couple responses to that.
Uh-huh.
I believe that he actually like the that was kind of like a quote taken from the director of this movie, saying that Spidey sense doesn't play a big role in this movie, but I believe he does have a form of Spidey sense, and as you said, it could develop to something stronger. In Civil War, he specifically says that his senses have been dialed up to 11. So he does have some type of sense, you know what I mean? Like his eyes, you know, he can see better with his eyes, or I guess they're super sensitive. And there is this idea that he just got his powers. Like, remember, when Civil War started, he only was Spider-Man for 6 months.
Yeah.
When this movie starts, it specifically says it's 2 months after Civil War. So he hasn't even been Spider-Man for a full year.
Yeah.
So just because he doesn't have spider sense in the traditional sense right now doesn't mean he's not going to have it later on. Yeah. But I do think he does have a form of spider sense, not as developed. I mean, you see this guy, he can't even web sling correctly. Like he's sometimes he web slings and he falls flat on his face, he trips. Yeah, I mean, it happens a couple times in the movie. He's not full fledged.
I mean, honestly, Spider-Man is there's so many aspects to that character that there isn't I mean, I guess the comics maybe you could say are the template, even though they constantly change. But I remember, you know,
there's times in the comics where he could communicate telepathically with spiders.
Yeah.
And I don't care if that's in the movie at all.
And like I remember with the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, he would shoot webs out of his wrists, and it was always
they were organic.
Yeah, instead of web shooters. But you know, it's if it's a slight change, honestly, what big of a difference does it make? And like I said, I didn't think about that at all during this movie because,
for sure,
to be honest with you, sometimes when you do think about the fact that Spider-Man has, you know, if he has spider sense, how does he get knocked around as much as he does? You know what I mean?
True.
You got to kind of suspend your disbelief, but it doesn't ruin the movie at all, in my opinion. And I don't know. I really have no complaints in terms of how they did Spider-Man, how they did Peter Parker. I like that they didn't lay on, you know, like some of the typical Spider-Man themes too heavy. Like, yes, he was late to school or skipping class, or people were like, yo, what's going on with you? But it wasn't like overbearing. It wasn't like anyone was like kind of trying to, you know, brought to tears, like, why do you keep cutting class? It was just like, he gets scolded, you know, people are wondering, yo, you're kind of weird. What's up with you? But they keep it moving. They focus on the interesting things, which I really appreciated.
I mean, one thing I wanted to say as you say that, in terms of like Spider-Man, you know, tropes and characterizations, I mean, Tom Holland as Peter Parker and Spider-Man, I felt like he might be the best interpretation of Peter Parker and Spider-Man. What I mean by that is, typically speaking, when you think of Tobey Maguire, you think Tobey Maguire was a great Peter Parker, right? Not necessarily a great Spider-Man, right? Like in the suit quipping, you know, in the suit style and things like that. Yeah. Whereas on the flip side, you have Andrew Garfield, where people say he wasn't a great Peter Parker, but he was a really good Spider-Man, where, you know, he had the poses down. You know, the quipping could use a little work in the first movie, but, you know, he got around to it by the second one. It was a lot better. But I feel like this movie, Tom Holland did great as Peter Parker and as Spider-Man. You know, the quipping was good. The commentary was funny. Like, he was just the funny and sometimes awkward Spider-Man that you know from the comics. Yeah. And that was, you know, that was dope to see, man.
Yeah, I mean, I was like happy. I was happy because Spider-Man is like one of my favorite superheroes, and it's great.
I mean, you both grew up with Spider-Man, man, like many other people, like millions around the world, man. We grew up with that character.
I mean, I just had a smile on my face for most of the movie, seeing them do what they did and do it right.
I mean, I also love that, you know, Peter Parker, not only did he learn from Tony Stark and his own experiences, but he also learned from Adrian Toomes, the Vulture. Yeah. So, you know, by the end of the movie, like, we're talking future here. By the end of the movie, Tony's flat out offering him a spot on the Avengers. Like, he's called the news conference to introduce him to the Avengers. Which, by the way, I had a question about that. I'm gonna ask you in just a second. Right. But, you know, Toomes gave Peter Parker a speech just about, you know, the little guy sometimes getting stomped on or getting forgotten about by, you know, the bigger ups, the suits, which is also both a shout out to, I think, Marvel and our kind of pet peeve with Marvel villains, which is just they all seem to be suits.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like Obadiah Stane, Kingpin, Yellow Jacket from Ant-Man, just like guys in suits. You know what I'm saying? And Peter Parker, he kind of gets that. Like Adrian Toomes says, you know what I mean, and Peter Parker's like, I do know what you mean. And Tony asks him, do you want to be an Avenger? Like, I'm ready to move you into this facility, give you a spot. And Parker says, hey, I just want to be the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man for now.
Yeah.
And Tony respects that. And I was just like, he kind of took a page out of Vulture's book. He's like, I don't want to forget the little guy.
Yeah, no.
Because I am the little guy.
Yeah.
And I don't want to forget where I came from.
Yeah.
And I was like, that was pretty damn cool. That was pretty damn cool moment.
So what you're saying is, in the next Spider-Man movie, we need to see the Defenders.
I mean, that's as defendery as you can get, to be honest with you, in terms of language. But they out here trying to crown Spider-Man the next, basically the face of the MCU going forward.
Yeah.
You ain't gonna see the Defenders even sniffing his jockstrap at this point. Unfortunately,
unfortunately not. But one quick thing about that scene is
we got to talk about the suit.
Suit.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that suit was baller. That was one of the best superhero suits I have ever seen. And people will probably start seeing pictures of it in the coming days, at least, or maybe next week. But that was an amazing superhero suit, not just for Spider-Man, but just in general, MCU, DC, EU, all of them. We need to he needs to wear that for Infinity War. He needs to wear that.
Yeah, I mean, that seems to be what's going to happen when Infinity War comes. I mean, the cool thing about this suit was, I think a lot of people thought the Civil War suit that he got, people thought that was the Iron Spider interpretation because, he's got the AI, he's got the programming in there. Shout out to the AI, by the way, Karen. He named Karen, who's played by Jennifer Connelly. Interestingly enough, Jennifer Connelly is married to Paul Bettany in real life. Paul Bettany did the voice of Jarvis, and he's now playing the Vision. So that's an interesting little tie there. But, the suit, man, I feel like this new suit is actually more of the Iron Spider suit. And I'll tell you what made me think that. The gold lining on the suit. Like, there's gold detailing on the suits. Yes. And I think that's an homage to the Iron Spider suit, which is predominantly red and gold. It is definitely not like the Iron Spider suit. There's way more blue in it. And kind of like a little bit of red, as opposed to, kind of like an equal balance between the red and blue. But I liked it.
Yeah,
I loved it.
It was like, it's definitely Tony Stark inspired in terms of the colors of Iron Man's suit. Kind of just, infuse a little bit there into Spider-Man's traditional colors. A couple things that I liked a lot was, I guess, like the gold lining and the way that it has a spider on the chest, but it's like a negative lining of the spider, if that makes any sense. Like, it's not like a drawn-in spider, but it's like the lines moving up through his torso, they kind of form like a spider, like a negative. I guess the negative space in the middle is in the shape of the spider. Absolutely. And I don't know if you noticed the shoulders. It almost like he had some sort of like pads or something.
I didn't see that, man.
Yeah, I guess in describing it.
Yeah,
it probably, like, if you were to say, oh, well, Spider-Man, what if he had like some shoulder pads on his suit? It would probably sound, you probably think, oh, that's not gonna look good. But the way they looked it worked. Like, I don't know if they were pads or, again, it was just the lining. Maybe it was the lining, but it looked awesome the way it would just kind of, contour his suit. It was amazing.
The way I think of this suit, I think of it as a fusion between Spider-Man 2099 and the Iron Spider costume. So it's like predominantly blue, but it kind of has the gold lining of the Iron Spider costume. And even the Iron Spider costume, like the Spider-Man logo is kind of like made up of like different like design pieces. So it kind of has that like negative look that you're talking about. Just not quite this. It's a little less of the negative look. Like, it's clearly a spider, except the parts of the spider aren't connected at the center. Yeah. So it's got that look. It also doesn't have arms. Like the Iron Spider costume has, but don't be surprised if that gold lining can actually like disconnect from the suit and create some type of like extra, I'm not gonna say limbs, but like, let's say he needs to like, I don't know, hack into a computer or something. Like one of those, gold pieces comes off, turns into, an arm with a USB flash drive on the end or some shit like that. I don't know.
Or it could be like sharp, I don't know, like talons or or something.
Stingers or something.
Stingers, yeah, because we saw a lot of that in the suit that he had in this movie.
Yes.
We had particularly that little drone. Like at first I saw it and I was like, that's a weird looking spider. That's on his suit. But then you see that later on in the movie that it has a use, because he is commanding the AI, and the AI is kind of suggesting all these different modes, which is a funny is a bit of a gag throughout the movie, where he's like, oh well, we took off the kitty protocols, and and now you have full access to the suit,
training wheel,
and they're like, oh, you have like 530 different web combinations, and it's just like, what?
Yeah,
but I think that's also, again, an homage to Spider-Man's past, where Spider-Man would have a Spider-Man car and a Spider-Man helicopter, and he had like all needless just gadgets and things. When he's Spider-Man, He has enough as is, and I think they were kind of like a tongue-in-cheek kind of joke, where even he is struggling, like, okay, what is this? Oh my God, I don't need electric webs, or I don't need whatever kind of silly putty web this is, and he's just kind of like cycling through everything, which again was cool and an homage. But yeah, again,
absolutely,
he had the little spider drone. That's what that kind of was on his chest that he used. Again, everything had a purpose in this movie, and again, a spider drone worked in conjunction with him in a couple scenes, particularly the scene where he's on the Washington Monument.
Yes,
which was a dope scene.
I mean, as you bring up that dope scene, I mean, the climactic battle between him and the Vulture. I mean, Marvel teased you for a second thinking that the Vulture died.
Yeah.
But I think that in terms of scale, that actually might have been like the best Spider-Man like climactic scene that I can remember.
Yeah. I mean,
like it was crazy like
in terms
just being on the plane fighting and having to deal with the physics and also the physics of the characters. I mean, it was honestly impressive.
Yeah,
man.
In terms of scale, I think in Amazing Spider-Man 2, they had the whole citywide fight with Electro, but that movie wasn't good. There was Spider-Man 3.
That was hot too. That was hot though.
It was visually
when he was
striking.
swinging through. It was visually striking when he was swinging through and Electro was trying to shock him and like kind of popping in and out from the foreground and background of the screen. That was kind of hot. That was dope.
Yeah, like I think. Again, there's a lot of similarities between this and Spider-Man 2 in the sense that a lot of these fighting scenes, a lot of these set pieces remind me of the back and forth fight scenes Spider-Man had with Dr. Octopus and Spider-Man 2. Where it was never really, there was really nothing that was like crazy over the top. I think even this movie is a little bit more over the top in terms of the set pieces than Spider-Man 2. But honestly, it's just the way they made you care about what was going on made Spider-Man 2 so awesome. I mean, they were just like literally fighting on top of buildings, but they did it in a way that was exciting and it was gripping. And it was the same thing with Spider-Man Homecoming. I mean, the MCU, they nerfed a lot of the characters. And Spider-Man, again, not only is he 15 and just like 8 months into being Spider-Man, so he's inexperienced and he's nerfed. And you may think, oh, well, what kind of fight scene is that on a plane? But the way they shot it and the way what they presented, it was gripping. It was exciting the whole time. And then how everything ends up crashing into Coney Island, and it was awesome. It was awesome. I mean, all the fight scenes and all the action scenes were fun to watch. I mean, even some of the scenes that were kind of like for comedic purposes were entertaining. And then when he was getting in and just kind of doing his thing, fighting thugs or goons or fighting the Shocker or fighting the Vulture a couple times, it was all just extremely interesting. And of course there was the ferry scene. I mean, I will say, again, this movie warrants multiple viewings because there's a lot. Sometimes I felt like I was like, wow, there's like so much going on in that ferry scene that I want to see it again to really catch a lot of the things that I missed, because they're throwing everything at you, and it was really cool.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I will say, speaking of the ferry scene, is that a lot of people were concerned about the trailer spoiling too much, and a lot of people were even voicing complaints to the point where the director even responded saying like, hey, like, trust me, it's not really spoiling that much. Yeah. I can honestly say the trailers do not spoil that much.
They don't.
And like, I mean, even that scene where, you see in the trailer where, Tony kind of puts his arm around Peter and he's like talking to him. like that's at the end of the movie. I never expected that to be at the end. I almost expected it to be like towards like early on, where Peter's kind of talking to him about. I figured Peter was maybe talking to him about any Avengers missions he had, but it was really at the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And I honestly, like, sometimes I'm sitting in the movie theaters watching a movie, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is probably about to be the part where they do this.
Yeah.
Like, that happened for me with the Staten Island ferry scene, but that was obviously when they mentioned Staten Island ferry. But I honestly was watching the movie, and I wasn't sitting there piecing together the plot based on the trailer. And believe me, there are movies where I'm piecing together the plot based on the trailer. I'm looking at you, Batman vs Superman. I mean,
oh, no.
I mean, I hate to bring it up, but I'll move on because I know people are gonna, throw me down into the Hudson River or something. Just tie a cement block to my leg or something.
Yeah.
But yes.
Yeah. But
I mean, it was great, man.
I guess the best way to describe how the trailer was constructed, with the scenes or the pieces that it got from the movie is really a lot of transitional scenes, really.
Yeah.
I mean, they just kind of took scenes that were as short as they are on the trailer, and they don't really divulge too much information. I mean, Hazy said, it was extremely well done, and like, it's just, this movie, again, it has very memorable scenes, which even like some Marvel movies you can't say the same about. Because if you look at even some of the bigger movies, like say like Age of Ultron, which is usually a movie that people kind of pick on as being not a good Marvel movie, you don't remember. There aren't like a lot of like really memorable scenes in that movie. You know what I mean? And and they say like Thor 2: The Dark World, for example, and even some of the good ones. I mean, Doctor Strange I liked, but there weren't like a whole ton of memorable scenes that you kind of think back to. But I feel like Spider-Man Homecoming, it was just chock full of them. And on top of that, because sometimes that's, that could be a weak point for a movie where it's just really more a movie about scenes than it is telling you a cohesive plot. But this movie does both. It tells you an interesting story from beginning to end, and it gives you a lot of very cool set pieces, fights, conversations, just gags and jokes, and it really just kind of checks off all the check boxes that you would want out of a Spider-Man movie, given the setting. And I think this movie, in terms of all the Spider-Man movies, they probably did the best job of capturing New York.
Definitely.
Yeah. A New York high school that's diverse and how everyone kind of interacts and how everyone tends to be kind of cool with each other, and the way the teachers are, the way that it is to kind of be in the neighborhood of Queens and be in the local spots, and they really did a good job.
Even shots of like the train stations and whatnot. They showed like a couple train station spots. They showed him riding on a couple trains with current New York City subway trains. Like, you could see like the front. He was sitting on one of the trains, and it was the front of like, I forget what train it was. I think it maybe been the E train. Mm-hmm. It was like, though, he was like literally sitting on like one of the trains. Yeah. Like, I recognized the train. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, there were a lot of spots
and it's a small detail, but being from New York, it's dope.
Yeah, there were a lot of places that you would recognize. Obviously, they changed some of the signs. And it's like, there's no 36th Avenue, what was it, Middletown High or whatever, whatever high school you went to. Yeah. But definitely, it looked familiar.
Yeah. It actually looked like something on the J line, but that's besides the point.
True.
But, I mean, one thing that I just want to take from what you said is that it checked all the boxes for being a Spider-Man movie, but it also became its own movie in the trilogy. The twist with MJ, the twist with Adrian Toomes being Liz Allen's father. I mean, even elevating Liz Allen to essentially a main character role. Yeah. And then also at the end of the movie, which is kind of like a wink to Iron Man, and what Iron Man did at the end of his movie was Spider-Man's identity gets revealed to Aunt May. And that was a hilarious way to end the movie, but essentially Aunt May finds out, which is, essentially completely different from the other two Spider-Man franchises. The first franchise, I don't think does she know at all in the first Spider-Man franchise? She maybe finds out in 3, right? Potentially? Or does Peter maybe consider telling her? No, he tells her about Uncle Ben and how, I understand, but Spider-Man killing Uncle Ben's killers, right?
Yeah.
One of Uncle Ben's killers. But But in, the Amazing Spider-Man movies, Aunt May doesn't outright admit that she knows, but you get the feeling that she knows. But this is flat out like Aunt May has seen him in the Spider-Man suit, and the movie ends with her saying, "What the, F." She doesn't say F, but it's about to be said.
Yeah.
And, just dealing with that, I mean, the future of Spider-Man is bright. Kevin Feige came out and said there's a 5-movie arc they're planning for Spider-Man, which is interesting because that would mean, he said starting with Civil War. So Civil War, Spider-Man Homecoming, Avengers, Infinity War, Avengers 4, Untitled, and Spider-Man, the sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming, which is going to start off Phase 4. That's 5 movies right there. Yeah. Tom Holland let it slip, which I'm pretty sure Marvel was mad about, or Marvel didn't want him to. He let it slip that he's doing a trilogy of Spider-Man films. So, with Kevin Feige saying a 5-movie arc, that does not count the sequel or the 3rd movie in the Spider-Man Homecoming potential trilogy. So that's an interesting thing to know. But the future is bright for Spotty, especially with that fine ass suit, bro. Oh my God, yo. That suit had me hyping the theaters. I was like, yo, I need that.
Yeah.
I was like, yo, I need it.
Everyone let out some sort of reaction when they revealed that. Like, it was that hot of a suit.
People in the theater like, oh my God, it looks so... Like, the comments that were being had in the theater, like, oh my God, it looks so beautiful. Look at that suit. I was like, yo, I need that. Even my sister, who was there with us, she's not even, like, the biggest Spider-Man fan, but she's like, yo, that's the dopest Spider-Man suit I ever seen.
Absolutely.
It just looked phenomenal. Yeah. I am very excited for the future of Spider-Man.
I mean,
and
you got any criticism or anything, any negatives to the movie? Maybe at least nitpicks.
Any nitpicks? Yeah. Minor nitpicks. I do have a couple. That I can think of at least. Iron Man's suit. I don't know what they were doing with that. I believe that's the Mark 47 armor.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were doing, man. It was like he was painting a prototype and then just got distracted. Yeah. And then when he was ready to wear the suit, he's like, "Damn, I forgot to finish painting it." Like the whole midsection is silver.
No, I think he was building that suit, and then he kind of took a glance at the new Spider-Man suit, and then he was like, "Oh, damn, let me go look at that Spider-Man suit a little bit more." Didn't get the chance to finish it, but it looked a lot like the Iron Man 2 suitcase suit. I don't know if you remember that one.
It did. In terms of the color scheme, the Mark, that might have been the Mark 5 or 4. I think it was a Mark 4.
You sent me like
the portable.
You sent me like a picture of it, and I saw it had the mark, like the number and Roman numerals. It was way too many Roman numerals for me to really understand. It was like 3 X's and an L and all that. But
I think it's Mark 47 is the one for Spider-Man Homecoming.
Yeah, I agree. It doesn't really decide on what it wants to do, and then for some reason it has like Spider-Man inspired knees. It was just the oddest thing. I don't know why.
Yeah, it was the Mark 5 that you're talking about. Yeah, it does have. I'm looking at a picture of the Mark 5 right now. It does have a Mark 5 color scheme look to it for sure. Definitely has that. And funny enough, I actually like the Mark 5 suit. It's just my issue is that the silver, it doesn't know what it's doing. It's like red, silver, and gold. So I just, I had some, that was one thing that was a little bit minor for me. I'm trying to think of anything else. I don't hate the MJ twist like I think some people might. This is a minor thing. But Flash Thompson, I never really took him seriously as a bully. But I could tell he's trying to be like a different kind of bully to Peter Parker.
He's just being a douche, and I mean,
that was a little bit of a modern take on a bully.
Yeah,
it was just someone who's just a general douchebag. He's just kind of like cracking. He's a wisecracker as opposed to a physical challenge to Peter Parker.
I think what they were playing off is either, because I'm pretty sure they're gonna be friends. I mean, that's kind of how it played out in the comics. They ended up becoming friends, and it's just like he's doing that weird Helga from Hey Arnold thing where he's like, "Hey, I kind of like you, but I'm just being a douche because I'm awkward and I don't know how to approach you." So that's why he's like, because he pops out like in the movie out of nowhere, and I'm just like, "Yo, who asked for you? Like, why?" Like someone's talking to Peter, and then he's like, "Oh, penis, Parker, penis." It's like, yo, get out of here.
Oh man, I mean, he's pretty much a hater. Another really minor thing. I would have liked to see them explain, like, obviously they showed the Tinkerer, who is, working on the Chitauri tech. I would have loved just a little bit of detail on how you went about, reworking all this stuff and figuring out how to make all these weapons. But honestly, I can live with it because there's literally that flashback from them stealing the Chitauri weaponry or tech is like from literally like the time after the Avengers first movie. So it's been a significant amount of time.
Yeah. I got two things that I guess I'll say. Again, these are nitpickers. I really enjoyed the movie. The dialogue I think was a little off sometimes. I mean, obviously it's adults trying to write how kids would talk, and they got it right for the most part. But sometimes I was
particularly with Liz. I felt it with Liz sometimes. Actually, because sometimes I, like I said, I felt it was a little off, and other times I was like, oh, this is how weird and awkward. They said my younger brother is, and him and his friends when they think they're cool. True. And then the other thing is, I guess the beginning after the two opening scenes, which is Adrian Toomes and his construction crew, and then the Peter Parker documentary. Yes.
I guess like the first 10-15 minutes, I was just wondering like, where is this gonna go? Like it was, I don't know. It didn't really. It seemed like it was like things were just happening, and I wasn't quite sure what they were really leading up to. But it's like a very slight nitpick for me. Like again, I
mean, it didn't grab you. You're saying?
Yeah, it was. I don't know. It's hard to describe. It's almost like I felt like I was wondering what was going on. Pretty much.
For me, honestly, and this is me knowing that Michael Keaton was going to be the Vulture. If you're going into this and you don't know, if you're going into this, you're not even listening. If you're going into this movie, you don't know anything about it, you're not even listening to this video, because you ain't even a fan like that. But for me, I was sitting there like, I thought it was interesting that they started off with the villain, and they started off with Adrian Toomes and what was going on with him, and I thought that was pretty cool, because it's Marvel does not spend time with their villains sometimes.
Oh no,
and they just expect you to accept that they're evil, but they didn't establish this guy as an evil guy. Like I felt bad for him. Like in that beginning, I was like, damn, that's dirty, because they weren't even like, oh, you'll be compensated, because he's like, yo, I made investments in this. He's like, I could lose my house if I don't get this cleanup job. He's like, yo, we got a contract with the city of New York to clean up this mess, and Damage Control just comes in and just like, no, it's on us. Speak to our boss. And I would love to know, why Tony Stark didn't compensate him, because, he did have a contract. He did spend money on it, and he just got up and outed out of the situation. And that sucks. Yeah. Like, I would hate Tony Stark for that, too.
Absolutely. I mean, Tony Stark, not always the most likable guy. I mean, he makes it very clear that he's trying to turn a new leaf and he wants people to be better. He wants Spider-Man to be better because he recognizes he hasn't been the best in his past. But, like I said, I agree. I like that first scene where they show you the villains. I like the scene where you see like the documentary where you see him in his home footage of when he was fighting in Berlin. But I guess for me the best way I can explain it is they did that thing that they do in almost every Spider-Man movie, where it's like, hey, here's a a weekend in the life of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, and he's going to the deli, and then he's kind of saving a cat from a tree, and he's getting into a little argument with like locals because he webbed the wrong guy thinking he was stealing a car. And it was I guess it was just they were just kind of just showing you that scene to pass along the time, to then kind of get you get the wheels rolling, like, okay, well, this is the conflict, this is what this is all kind of going to lead into, these are the problems that some of the characters have and they need resolved. Which again, like I said, is a nitpick, and it was like maybe the first 10 minutes of the movie, which
what I'll say about that in response is that I feel like, if anything, this movie makes that even more relevant because of the theme. Like, friendly neighborhood Spider-Man isn't just a name and a wink to the comics. That is a theme for this movie. He is this neighborhood guy. He is this guy who cares about the people on the ground, as they say in the movie.
Oh yeah.
And I think by showing him having those interactions, it really shows the foundation of Peter Parker and thus Spider-Man, which is he is this friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's who he is, and that's who he chooses to remain at the end of the movie instead of running off to join the Avengers in an official capacity.
Totally agree, and I just realized something. Notice that they didn't do the "with great power comes great responsibility" shtick.
Yeah,
they didn't do that at all.
They didn't need to. Uncle Ben's not even referenced.
Yeah.
But I do honestly believe that in Civil War, once again, part of this five movie Spider-Man arc, he makes reference to this idea that with great power comes great responsibility, and I do believe that ultimately in the trilogy you probably will see that line, maybe in the official capacity, because they didn't really go too much into what happened to Uncle Ben. We know he exists because it's Spider-Man, like, let's be honest, and I think that's something that might be explored later on in the trilogy. We'll see. Yeah. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm also looking forward to just, the villains they go with. Just having them making me care about someone like the Vulture meant the world to me. Because I'm like, with the villain problem that Marvel has, for them to take a villain that's not necessarily considered a main villain for one of their main heroes and make them feel important, make them feel worth it, and not kill them, that was phenomenal, man. But, any final words, man? I mean, is it the best Spider-Man movie of all time, bro? That's really the question. Where does it rank amongst the Marvel films? I'm gonna answer it too. I'm not putting it out there for you to answer, me not to.
I mean, like you said earlier, the future is very, very bright for this Marvel Spider-Man. This was a really fun movie. This is just and I know we're kind of on this trip, and people, I don't know, for whatever reason, people always complain that Marvel movies are too funny and they're not dark enough and blah blah blah, but I'm the type of person, I feel that there are, like, whether it's dark or lighthearted doesn't make it good or bad. It's just those are just two different types of ways of making a superhero movie. And this, I really enjoy The Dark Knight, I really enjoy Logan, and I really enjoy Spider-Man 2 and Guardians of the Galaxy and Spider-Man Homecoming, because it doesn't need to be dark. And that's totally fine. But I guess, I'll say it's 1A, 1B in terms of Spider-Man movies.
Okay, so which one's 1A, which one's 1B, man? You're not dodging this one, brother.
Damn. I'm gonna feel like a scumbag because I'm betraying just one of my favorite movies of all time. But I'm gonna have to give the leg up to Spider-Man Homecoming. Because it's part of the MCU. Dr. Octopus was done very well, but we haven't seen the last of the Vulture. We haven't seen the last of any of these other villains, and I'm interested in all of them. Like, I liked seeing them whenever they popped up on the screen, even if it was for a little bit. Like, they made me like Shocker.
Yeah,
Shocker's the bum ass, but in this, they made him work. They made him into something interesting. You know what I mean? And it was I don't know. It's like a very just wonderful brunch of a movie, just like very light,
definitely,
and very fun, and you can revisit it, and it was awesome. It was just an awesome movie, and I'm gonna have to give this the 1A spot to Spider-Man Homecoming, and I can't wait to see the next Spider-Man Homecoming movie.
Absolutely, man. I mean, that's a great answer, man. I can't fault you for that. I will honestly say, for me, okay, this is, I'm gonna go with 1A, 1B. Again, I like the way you said that. I honestly think Spider-Man Homecoming by a hair is the best Spider-Man movie of all time. And the reason why is because the reason why is in the name of the movie. Spider-Man has come home. He's home. And it felt like he was home. You see, just having Captain America pop up in these PSAs, having Iron Man be a character, having people wear masks, looking like Thor, Hulk, Captain America, and Iron Man. Just the way, I almost wish those other Spider-Mans hadn't come, just so that, like, I could see how Marvel would do with just no restraints on them telling a true comic book story, because they definitely did their own spins on things, but I honestly think it is the best. Yeah. It's the best Spider-Man movie of all time to me. But that is not to detract from Spider-Man 2, because Spider-Man 2 will always be legendary.
It's classic.
I honestly believe that. Like, I honestly believe that you will remember that as one of the greats. At least we will. Maybe the next generation, the teenagers who were teenagers now who are maybe too young to see it. But I think it's the best movie of all time. The best Spider-Man movie of all time. Where it ranks in terms of my favorite Marvel movies, that's a little bit harder. So I'm going to have to save that for a future video where we rank all of the Marvel movies in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So stay tuned to the spectacular spoiler for that, man. And DeepBoyce, we're going to leave it at that, man. We're not even going to answer that question.
Nope.
We're not going to answer that question. Check out the next vid. If you like what you heard today, let us know in the comments below. Let us know if you're going to be checking out, if you've already checked out Spider-Man Homecoming, and if you like the movie. Let us know how you feel about Tom Holland as Spider-Man. Let us know what you think of the Vulture. Let us know what you think of the role that some of the MCU characters played in Spider-Man Homecoming. Shout outs to the return of Pepper Potts, by the way.
Word.
That was another dope thing. Let us know what you think about that Spider-Man, that Spider-Man future suit, man. That suit, that I guess the Iron Spider-Man 29 suit. He's definitely gonna be rocking that at some point in Avengers Infinity War. So look out for that. But anyway, join up with the Spectacular Spoiler League by hitting the subscribe button, and if by all means, if you like what you heard today, hit us with a like. We'll see you guys on the next one.
Peace.